Welcome back to the second episode of Tips on Fleek with your host, Miss Wierzinski. This episode will focus on explaining to students how and why projects, tests, and performance grades really matter. Did you know that projects, tests, and performances are worth 45% of your marking period grade? This information has and always will be included on your course syllabus. Focusing in to marking period 2, there are 3 assignments that make up the projects, tests, and performances category. The first is the critique paper, the second is the Winter Arts Showcase, and the third is the January Dance Showcase. Each grade for the assignment will be averaged together to create the final average for the project, tests, and performances category. To show you how important and weighty this category really is, let's do some math with grades! Woo! The first example that I want to show you is how your overall project, test, and performance category is affected when a student chooses to submit the critique paper versus a student who chooses not to submit the critique paper. Here you will see a chart for the student who chooses to submit the critique paper on time. The column on the left here is the name of the assignment, the points earned, and the percentage. The critique paper is assessed out of 32 points. If you need a breakdown for how the 32 points are earned, please see your rubric in the project packet. In this example, the student earns 28 points in their critique paper, which leads to a percentage of an 87.5. We're going to fast forward here and assume that the student earns a 20 out of a 24 on the Winter Arts Showcase and also a 20 out of a 24 for the January Arts Showcase, both leading to percentages for those projects being 83%. When you add the 87.5, the 83, and the 83 together and divide it by 3, you come to the average of the project grades. This student who submitted the critique paper on time has an overall average for their test, project, and performances of an 84.5%. Now, let's look at the student who chose not to submit the critique paper. You can see that by not submitting the assignment, the student automatically earns a 0, which leads to a 0%. When you add the 0%, the 83, and the 83 together and divide it by 3, the overall average of the project grades has dropped drastically to a 55%. I hope from this example it is clearly illuminated how greatly your grade will be hurt if you choose not to submit the critique paper. If work is submitted late, 1 point will be deducted from the 32 possible points for every day that the paper is submitted late. We are now looking at an example of a paper submitted a few days late versus a paper submitted many days late. This is the example of our first student. The paper was due on December 9th, and the student submitted the paper on December 12th. The teacher starts by grading the assignment as normal. In this example, the student has earned 28 out of the 32 possible points before the deductions are taken. The teacher then subtracts 3 points for the 3 days that the paper was submitted late, moving the final score down to a 25 out of a 32, which moves the overall final percentage down to a 78. Womp, womp, womp. Now, let's look at the critique paper that was submitted many days late. Again, the paper was due on the 9th, but this assignment was not submitted until January 3rd of the next year. As in the last scenario, the critique paper in its original scoring received a 28 out of the 32 possible points. But since it was a whopping 25 days late, 25 points were deducted, leaving the student with a very low final score of 3 out of 32, or a 9%. I hope this example illuminates to students how pertinent it is to turn in timely work. In conclusion of this Grades on Fleek episode, please remember to complete your critique paper on time. This is one of 3 test, project, and performance grades which factor largely into your marking period 2 grade. As always, please ask me questions when you have them about the structure of this paper or about your grades. Lastly, I highly suggest that you submit a rough draft of your paper. I am happy to read through your paper, help you with your spelling and grammar errors, and assist you in identifying content that you may be missing. Signing off, this is Miss Z with Tips on Fleek.